The mighty Danube River formed the northeastern frontier of the Roman Empire. Beyond it lay Dacia, a land of dense forests and fierce warriors. The Romans called them barbarians, a term for all people outside their civilization. The Dacians were a constant threat to the Roman province of Moesia, which was south of the Danube and encompassed modern-day Serbia and Bulgaria. The Dacians were a powerful and numerous people, skilled horsemen and fearsome warriors, rich in resources, especially gold and silver. The Romans had long cast covetous eyes on Dacia. Roman emperors from Julius Caesar onward had considered conquering Dacia. However, the Dacians were a formidable enemy, and the Romans had never been able to conquer them. In fact, the Dacians had inflicted several defeats on the Romans. In 69 AD, a Dacian army crossed the frozen Danube River and attacked Moesia, plundering the province before returning home. This raid shocked and angered the Romans, making them determined to subdue the Dacians once and for all. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations. The Roman legions, disciplined and well-equipped, would face the fierce warriors of Dacia. Only one could dominate the Danube frontier. In 85 AD, the Dacians were united under a new king. His name was Decebalus. He was a brilliant military strategist and a charismatic leader. Decebalus meant strong as 10. He was determined to drive the Romans out of Dacia. Decebalus was a master of guerrilla warfare. His warriors were experts in ambush and raiding. They knew the terrain of Dacia like the backs of their hands. The Dacians were armed with a fearsome weapon, the falx, a curved, double-handed sword that could cleave through Roman shields and armor. Decebalus united the Dacian tribes, something the Romans had never seen. He built a powerful army and a network of fortifications. Decebalus was a shrewd diplomat, playing the various Roman factions off against each other. The Romans underestimated Decebalus, viewing him as a barbarian chieftain. They would soon learn that he was a formidable opponent. In 85 AD, Domitian was emperor of Rome. He was ambitious and eager for military glory. Domitian saw the Dacians as a threat to his empire and was determined to conquer them. The Roman governor of Moesia was a man named Oppius Sabinus. He was arrogant and foolish, underestimating the Dacians. Sabinus provoked a war with them by withholding tribute that Rome had been paying to the Dacians. Decebalus saw his opportunity and launched a surprise attack on Moesia. The Dacians swept across the Danube River, catching the Romans completely off guard. Sabinus was killed in the initial assault. The Dacians overran Moesia, plundering the province and massacring Roman citizens. The news of the Dacian invasion reached Rome, causing a panic. Domitian was enraged. He assembled a large army and marched north to deal with the crisis. Domitian was determined to avenge the death of Sabinus and punish the Dacians. The Roman army was the most powerful military force in the world. It was made up of legionaries, professional soldiers armed with swords, spears and shields. They were also supported by auxiliary troops recruited from the provinces, providing specialized skills such as archery and cavalry. Despite their advantages, the Romans found themselves on the back foot. The Dacians were fighting on their home turf and were experts in guerrilla warfare. The Dacians launched a series of hit-and-run attacks on the Roman army, harassing the Roman supply lines and ambushing Roman patrols. The Romans were ill-equipped to deal with this type of warfare. A costly war for Rome. The First Dacian War was a brutal and costly conflict for both sides. The Romans suffered heavy casualties. Their legions were accustomed to open battlefields, but they struggled to adapt to the Dacians' guerrilla tactics. The legions were forced to fight in unfamiliar territory and were constantly harassed by the elusive Dacian warriors. The war put a strain on Roman resources. The legions required constant supplies, including food, weapons, and armor. The Roman treasury was drained by the war effort. The Dacians, fighting on their home ground, were able to replenish their forces more easily. They were more accustomed to hardship. The war also revealed weaknesses in the Roman army. The legions were still formidable, but they were not invincible. They could be vulnerable to determined opponents. The war also showed the limitations of Roman military thinking. The legions were not prepared for the challenges of fighting in a mountainous and forested region like Dacia. The battle for Tapae. Domitian appointed a new general to deal with the Dacians. This was a man named Cornelius Fuscus. He was an experienced soldier. Fuscus led a Roman army across the Danube River, seeking to bring the Dacians to battle. The two armies met at the Battle of Tapae in 88 AD. This was a narrow pass in the Carpathian Mountains. The Dacians, led by Decebalus, had chosen the battlefield carefully and used the terrain to their advantage. The Roman army was confident of victory and marched into the narrow pass. The legionaries were caught in a trap. The Dacians showered them with javelins and stones from the surrounding hills. The Roman legions were decimated. Fuscus was killed and the Romans were routed. The Battle of Tapae was a major victory for Decebalus and a humiliating defeat for the Romans. It showed that the Dacians were a force to be reckoned with. The legacy of the First Dacian War. The First Dacian War had a lasting impact on the Roman Empire. It was a reminder that even the mighty Roman army was not invincible. The war also showed the importance of adaptability in warfare. The Roman legions, accustomed to open battlefields, struggled to adapt to the Dacians' guerrilla tactics. The war also had a profound impact on the Roman military. It led to reforms in Roman military training and equipment. The Romans learned the need to adapt to different types of terrain and fighting styles. The war also led to the construction of new fortifications along the Danube frontier. This was to deter future Dacian invasions. The First Dacian War marked the beginning of a period of conflict between Rome and Dacia. The two empires would clash again in the Second Dacian War from 101 to 106 AD. This war would result in the Roman conquest of Dacia. A fragile peace. The defeat at Tapae shook the Romans. Domitian realized that the Dacian War was unwinnable, at least not at a price he was willing to pay. He sued for peace. Decebalus, also feeling the strain of the conflict, agreed to negotiate. The peace treaty, signed in 89 AD, was controversial in Rome. It recognized Decebalus as king of the Dacians. This acknowledged him as an equal to the Roman emperor. Rome also agreed to pay an annual tribute to Decebalus. This was seen as a mark of weakness. The aftermath of war. Despite the peace treaty, tensions remained high between Rome and Dacia. The Romans resented the tribute they were forced to pay. The Dacians, emboldened by their victory, continued to raid Roman territory. The First Dacian War had a significant impact on Domitian's reign. The war drained the Roman treasury. The humiliating defeat at Tapae damaged Domitian's reputation. This contributed to his growing unpopularity. For Decebalus, the war was a triumph. He had successfully defended his kingdom against the might of Rome. He had earned a reputation as a brilliant military leader. The First Dacian War marked the high point of Dacian power. Conclusion. The First Dacian War, from 85 to 89 AD, was a significant conflict. It pitted the Roman Empire against the Dacians. The war was a brutal and costly affair. It revealed the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. The war ended in a stalemate. A fragile peace treaty was signed in 89 AD. The First Dacian War had a lasting impact on both Rome and Dacia. It shaped the relationship between the two empires. It influenced the course of events that would lead to the Second Dacian War. That conflict would see the Roman conquest of Dacia. However, the First Dacian War stands as a testament to the tenacity and military skill of the Dacians. They were a people who fought fiercely to defend their kingdom.